Welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is to crack one of education's most, frustrating puzzles.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Right. We're looking at why learning a second language often feels so painful and how a completely new approach might actually just fix it.
Exactly. And we are pulling insights from a really fascinating paper for this.
We are. It's by Marvin Starminsky-Uehara. He's an assistant professor at Temple University, Japan.
Right.
And the paper is titled, When the Hero Speaks the Language, How AI-Generated Comic Books Can Ignite Language Learning for Any Child.
Which is such a great title, by the way. I mean, it takes a very familiar problem and applies this completely unexpected, highly practical solution to it.
It really does. And to really understand that solution, I want you to picture a scenario for a second.
Okay, let's hear it.
So it's a Tuesday evening. You are sitting at the kitchen table, and across from you is a child staring at this vocabulary worksheet.
Oh, I know this scene well.
Right. They are dutifully copying words in a second language. The pencil is moving, the blanks are getting filled in, but you look at their eyes and you just know. I mean, you know that by tomorrow morning, 90% of those words are going to be completely erased from their memory.
Yeah, that image is just the universal baseline frustration of every language teacher and parent.
Totally.
The information goes in, and it seemingly falls right back out no matter how much effort is applied in that moment at the table.
Exactly. And we usually blame the child's memory.
Right.
Or we blame a textbook. Or we just accept that learning a new language is inherently this massive grind.
Which it doesn't have to be.
Right.
Yeah.
What if the secret to language retention has nothing to do with better flashcards?
Yeah.
What if the secret is turning the learner into a literal comic book hero using a free, 15-minute AI workflow?
It sounds wild when you say it out loud.
It does. Okay, let's unpack this. Before we get into the shiny tools, we really need to understand the root of the problem.
Right, the diagnosis.
Yeah. Why do we forget what we just spent an hour trying to learn?
Well, the author makes a crucial point right out of the gate here. That moment at the kitchen table with the worksheet.
Yeah.
The problem there is almost never a cognitive one.
Really?
Yeah. The child's brain is processing information perfectly fine. The roadblock is entirely motivational.
Okay, how so?
We rely heavily on what the author calls decontextualized instruction.
Right.
So we hand out grammar drills, translation lists, fill-in-the-blank exercises. We are essentially demanding intense mental effort for content where the learner has absolutely zero emotional stake.
Oh, I see. Because the characters in those standard textbooks, they aren't the child.
Exactly.
The stories aren't theirs. It's always something incredibly dry, like, Juan goes to the library to find a blue book.
Right. And because the learner feels no connection to Juan or his blue book, they just disengage. And they disengage long before any actual fluency can take root.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, the human brain is a ruthlessly efficient energy manager. If you do not give it a compelling emotional reason to hold on to a new piece of information, it will just discard that data to save energy.
Wow. So learning from those decontextualized materials, it feels a lot like trying to memorize a page out of a phone book.
That's a great way to put it.
Like you can do it if you force yourself, but it's agonizing and the numbers fade quickly.
Exactly.
Whereas this new approach we're going to explore, it feels more like reading a highly anticipated letter addressed directly to you. You remember every single word. But I want to pause on this for a second.
Sure.
Is emotional investment really the magic bullet for memory? Or are we just talking about, making learning fun to keep kids quiet and compliant?
No, it's not just a trick. What's fascinating here is that language acquisition research has established emotional connection as a biological catalyst for learning.
A biological catalyst?
Yes, not just classroom management. Think about how the brain is wired. The amygdala, which processes emotion, sits right next to the hippocampus.
And that handles memory, right?
Exactly, memory formation. When a learner experiences intrinsic motivation, meaning the desire to understand comes from within because they actually care about the material, the amygdala signals the hippocampus.
Oh, wow.
It tags that incoming vocabulary as critical for survival or social functioning.
So it's like a priority tag for the brain.
Exactly. The brain's plasticity actually shifts. Suddenly it has a biological mandate to latch onto the syntax and the phrasing.
Which means if a teacher is just demanding that a student care, like extrinsic motivation, the brain just doesn't buy it.
Right. It refuses to tag the information as important.
So the core issue with the worksheet is that the brain just knows the worksheet doesn't matter.
That is it, exactly.
Okay, so the challenge then becomes, how do we manufacture that intrinsic biological motivation on demand?
Right.
And this brings us to the core of Staraminsky-Wahara's article, the workflow itself.
And we should probably frame this by noting that generative AI has completely altered the economics of personalized learning here.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, think about it. 5 years ago, creating a custom comic book starring a specific student written in a target language.
That would have been impossible for a normal person.
Right. It would have required an illustrator, a translator, a writer. It was a luxury reserved for heavily funded pilot programs.
Meaning, what used to cost thousands of dollars and take months now costs $0 and takes 15 minutes.
It's incredible.
It really is. So the author outlines the 7-step workflow that requires no technical background at all.
None.
The only real prerequisites are a kid with a story to tell and a smartphone.
That's it.
So let's walk you through what this actually looks like in practice. Step 1, it starts with the child just talking.
Right.
They grab a phone and just tell a story out loud.
And it could be anything. Something that happened at recess, a dream they had, a story about a dragon.
Yeah.
The author notes that keeping it brief is actually a feature, not a limitation here.
Oh, interesting. Why is that?
Because a tight narrative with a clear beginning, middle, and end gives the AI a much stronger foundation to build a comic than some sprawling, endless epic.
That makes perfect sense. But, raw audio of a kid rambling about a dragon isn't exactly a comic book yet.
No, it's not.
So steps 2 and 3 are the next hurdle. Getting that spoken idea into a format the AI understands, which is where transcription and refinement come in.
Right.
You take that audio and convert it to text using the standard voice-to-text feature on your phone. Then you use a free AI model to refine that transcription for narrative clarity.
But the paper emphasizes a massive caveat right here.
Yes, this is huge.
You have to instruct the AI to preserve the child's original voice.
Exactly. That nuance makes or breaks the whole process.
It really does. You are not asking the AI to write a better, more sophisticated story.
Right.
You are asking it to take the child's exact narrative and adapt it into a comic script format, breaking it into panels. If the AI changes the core ideas, you lose that emotional investment we just talked about.
Because it's not their story anymore.
Exactly.
Okay, so step 4. Once you have that script, you move to drafting the visual prompt.
Right.
This is where the adult or educator writes a description of what the comic should actually look like. You decide if it's a cartoon, a Japanese manga style, maybe watercolor.
Yeah, the style matters.
And you define the number of panels, describe the character's appearance, and most importantly, set the target language.
Right. Then you hit the synthesis stage, steps 5 and 6.
Okay.
You gather the refined story, the visual prompt you just drafted, and a photograph the child has selected of themselves.
Like a selfie.
Yeah. And you upload all 3 of those elements into a multimodal AI platform.
So something that can process both text and images, like ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, or Dubel.
Exactly. So step 7, the AI generates the comic and the child looks at it.
And the protagonist actually looks like them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the AI used their selfie as a reference. So they review this comic in their native language first.
Right.
And then comes the real magic trick. With one single added instruction, you have the AI regenerate that exact same comic in the target language.
Wow.
Yeah. So the child now reads the new language using their original native language comic as a reference key.
That is so clever.
They're decoding foreign vocabulary naturally just to understand their own story.
It completely flips the dynamic of that kitchen table worksheet we talked about.
It really does.
Because instead of decoding to please a teacher, they are decoding to uncover a narrative they already own.
Exactly.
But wait, here's where it gets really interesting, and I have to stop and look at the mechanics of this for a second.
Okay.
Because if the machine is polishing the story, and if it's helping write the prompt, if it's drawing all the art and translating all the text,
Yeah.
aren't we just building an automated homework machine here?
That is the big question, isn't it?
Like, how does the child learn anything if they're just pushing a generate button and consuming whatever pops out?
I'm glad you brought that up because it is the single most common critique of bringing generative AI into the classroom.
I bet.
But the author strongly challenges that assumption by focusing on the spark of creation.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, think back to how this workflow begins.
Hmm.
The child speaks the story into existence. The AI never generates the underlying narrative.
Oh, I see. So the intellectual property, the actual soul of the story, that belongs entirely to the student.
Yes. Human agency is preserved at the single most important moment of the entire process.
Right.
The machine acts as a facilitator, a translator, a graphic designer, but the core engine is the child's own mind.
That's a great way to frame it.
And that distinction is why the emotional stakes remain incredibly high. The student doesn't feel like they are just, consuming AI content. They feel like they're directing an AI to execute their vision.
Which transitions us perfectly into the author's deeper pedagogical philosophy here. Because reading this source, you really realize he isn't just trying to teach French or Japanese vocabulary.
No, not at all.
There is this whole hidden curriculum happening beneath the surface of this 15-minute exercise.
And the article contains a quote that captures this dual purpose beautifully. He says, "The comic book is the product. The workflow is the lesson."
The workflow is the lesson. Let's break that down because
Sure.
it really challenges how we normally think about assignments.
Right.
Usually the final essay or the final comic is the only thing that matters,
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. To understand what he means here, let's look at the prompt writing stage again.
Okay.
Sturaminsky Ohara explicitly states that before you submit your prompt to generate the final comic, you should ask the AI to improve your first draft of that prompt.
Oh, wow. So instead of just typing, make a manga comic about a boy finding a sword and just hoping for the best,
Right.
you ask the system, how can I make this prompt better to get a more accurate result?
Exactly. And by doing that, you are teaching a vital 21st century skill, iterative refinement.
Iterative refinement.
Yes.
Yeah.
You are teaching the learner that a first draft is not precious, and it is definitely not final. It is simply raw material that a machine can help you sharpen.
That is such a healthy mindset for writing in general.
Right. It removes the ego from drafting and turns problem solving into a collaborative loop with technology.
So while the student thinks they're just making a cool comic book, they are quietly building critical AI literacy.
Yes.
They are learning how to convert messy, real-world input into a structured system.
Right.
And they are learning to evaluate output and push back on it rather than just accepting the very first thing the computer spits out.
They're understanding on a really visceral level how their instructions govern the machine's behavior.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this methodology aligns perfectly with Marvin Sturaminsky Ohara's background in cognitive psychology.
He has a really interesting background.
He does. He developed a concept called trace pedagogy, which integrates critical thinking with practical AI applications. And he also created something called stigmergy network theory.
Okay, I have to admit, that sounds like incredibly dense academic jargon. Trace pedagogy, stigmergy.
It sounds intimidating.
Yeah.
But the underlying mechanism is actually quite intuitive.
Okay, break it down for me.
Think of stigmergy like an ant colony.
An ant colony.
Yeah. When an ant finds food, it leaves a chemical trail, right? A trace.
Okay.
The next ant follows that trace, reinforces it, and improves the route.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. In this AI workflow, the student is the ant and the prompt history is the trace.
That makes perfect sense.
The student inputs a prompt, sees what the AI generates, and uses that initial trace to build a better prompt the next time.
So they're literally leaving footprints for themselves to learn from, navigating this complex network of information. It's the difference between teaching a child how to, sit passively in a movie theater and just watch a film versus putting them in the director's chair.
Oh, I love that analogy.
As the director, they have to command the lighting, the script, the actors. They are learning to command the tools of production, not just consume the final output.
That analogy gets right to the heart of it. Shifting the student from a passive consumer to an active director is a fundamental change in how we approach literacy globally.
And globally really is the right word to use here.
It is.
One of the most striking elements of this paper is its focus on the reality of the global classroom. This is not some boutique experimental solution meant only for, well-funded private schools in Silicon Valley.
Not at all. The author identifies specific reasons why this is pedagogically sound on a global scale.
Right.
We already covered the first, which is that human agency is preserved.
Right.
But the second is just as crucial. The activity is explicitly designed around free-tier AI constraints.
That is so important, meaning you do not need a $20 a month premium subscription to make this work.
Exactly.
The basic free versions of these tools are powerful enough to execute the entire workflow.
Which means this method is executable in resource-limited settings anywhere in the world.
Right.
If you have a smartphone and an internet connection, you can generate this material.
That levels the playing field in a way that's hard to overstate.
It really does.
The article specifically highlights how powerful this accessibility is for heritage language programs and family literacy initiatives.
Yes, this is a huge application for this.
Like, imagine a family trying to maintain their native language while living in a new country. Standardized textbooks rarely capture the specific cultural nuances of a family's heritage.
No, they usually completely miss the mark.
But with this workflow, you can generate infinite, hyper-personalized reading materials in Tagalog, Arabic, Swahili, Portuguese, any language at all.
It solves a massive supply problem for heritage languages, which often suffer from a severe lack of engaging modern reading materials for young people.
And there's an emotional developmental angle to this as well, right? The author describes the experience of a parent or caregiver doing this workflow alongside the child.
Yeah, shared experience is his third point on why this methodology works so well.
Right.
Think about the moment when a parent and a child lean over a smartphone screen together.
Yeah.
And they see the child's face rendered as a comic book hero, speaking the language they are trying to preserve as a family.
Oh, that's powerful.
It creates this shared emotional resonance. It creates developmental value that goes far, far beyond memorizing a vocabulary list.
Exactly.
That shared moment of discovery is the exact kind of emotional tagging the hippocampus needs to make learning permanent.
The source even includes a QR code linking directly to the complete lesson plan online, noting that these resources have reached educators in over 100 countries.
Which is just a massive global footprint for a 15-minute exercise.
It really is. So what does this all mean?
Yeah.
For you, listening to this right now, how should this alter your perspective on education and technology?
I think the most powerful takeaway is found near the end of the article.
Okay, let's hear it.
The author writes, "A child who sees their own face in a comic panel written in French or Japanese is not being asked to care abstractly about a foreign language. They are encountering a language that is talking about them."
Let that sink in for a second. A language that is talking about them.
Yes.
It completely eliminates the gap between the learner and the material.
And this raises an important question about how we view resource allocation in education moving forward.
No, absolutely.
For decades, the industry has spent billions designing standardized textbooks.
Billions.
And by trying to appeal to everyone, those books often truly speak to no one.
Right.
But now that hyper-personalized, emotionally resonant content costs $0 and takes 15 minutes to produce,
Yeah.
it becomes very difficult to justify relying exclusively on the standardized model.
It really feels like a point of no return for how we curate learning materials.
It does.
We have taken quite a journey today. We started with the quiet desperation of a forgotten vocabulary worksheet at the kitchen table.
A place we all know too well.
Right. And we moved to a totally free, highly accessible AI workflow.
Yeah.
A workflow that not only solves the motivation problem in language learning by turning the student into the hero of their own story, but also quietly builds the essential AI literacy skills of the future through iterative refinement.
It is a remarkable synthesis of cognitive psychology and practical technology,
It really is.
proving that the best way to learn a system is to actively direct it.
So here is our call to action for you, the listener.
Yes.
Whether you are a parent trying to teach your kid a heritage language, a teacher looking for a new tool to break through a plateau, or just a curious lifelong learner.
Try it.
Exactly. Try this 7-step workflow yourself. Pick a language you've always wanted to learn, record a story, transcribe it, refine the prompt, and generate the comic.
And as you do it, pay close attention to which step requires the most active decision-making from you.
That's a great point.
Notice how the AI, despite all its processing power, is entirely dependent on your human agency to make the final product actually mean something.
And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, something that builds directly on the implications of this workflow.
Okay.
We have focused entirely on language learning today. But if hyper-personalizing the curriculum through AI solves the motivation problem here,
Yeah.
what happens when this generation of students applies this exact same workflow to other notoriously dry subjects?
Oh, wow.
Like, imagine a world where a student who is struggling with chemistry generates a graphic novel where they are the lead scientist discovering the elements.
Visually interacting with the periodic table to save the world.
Exactly. Are we looking at the end of standardized textbooks entirely?
That is a wild thought to leave on.
Suddenly, that kitchen table doesn't look like a place of frustration anymore.
No, it doesn't.
It looks like a production studio where any learner anywhere can write themselves into the center of the story. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.